snowing out today. As a New Englander, I do love the first snowfall. I mean, New York, I'm sorry, I love you, but I can't claim you. But, I just think about, I'm heading up to my parents, and I don't know. 2024, man, it's been a year. And as a food writer, has been one hell of a whirlwind. Recording, a video a few weeks, or months ago, 6 months ago, talking about how my main source of income disappeared, and as a freelancer, I did not have a way nor near how, and it was just the scariest time of my life. I mean, it was giving, put my auntie hat on for a minute, 2008 recession. And for those chitlins who don't know, 2008 recession, I just got out of college. Maybe I was a few years out of college. Yeah, I I graduated in 2005. But at that time, I was married. Shout out to my pal, ex-bae, forever friend, Aaron. Each of us had experienced 2 layoffs apiece. I think Aaron was home for almost a whole year. And that was the struggle bus. I remember we couldn't afford shampoo. The only thing we could, life was we made too much to get assistance, but we didn't, the good elections be calling. And so I think about 2024, where, I don't have, for much of the year, I've been dating someone, and, but still very new, still a lovely human who's going through life in their own life way. But, primarily I'm living by myself. It's just me and the girl, my feline friends, my 2 little babes. And I'm just dang, I didn't take any of the PPP money. No, PPE money during COVID. I worked through COVID. Hair got grayer. Swear down. And now my site, in March, completely just it just tanks. It is gone. My main source of income is gone. There, as a freelancer, you have no supports in that way. And with the COVID restrictions gone, there is no safety net. And so that was the first quarter of the year. And gosh, I struggled. It was robbing Peter to pay Paul. I mean, there's no robbing involved, but you know what I mean. And then I got this awesome gig, long-term gig, with a major food site, where I basically did what I was doing for my blog. I basically did that for the site and helped them update, probably 30 recipes a month. Now I'm not writing and testing the recipes. They basically would give me they'd give me a list of ingredients, and they'd give me the instructions, and basically it was my job to bring it to life. If it's a recipe for skirt steak, something with a not a griddle date, a chimichurri. All right, cool. What kind of herbs should you be using if you don't have cilantro? What else do you have? Why is skirt steak? What should you look out for when you're getting a skirt steak? Putting kind of my culinary / food writery brain to work, and it was fast paced, but it was hella fun. To be able to put my knowledge to use and tell you, okay, how many times can you talk about what baking soda and baking powder do for a recipe? I got you. And that ran until September, and that was fast and furious. I didn't really do much traveling, which is kind of my favorite part of the job, but I have an amazing community of people who love, and support me. We support each other, report into our projects, all that jazz. And, there is, we're making a way through. Saved up enough coin to kind of catch up on some of the challenges. And with help from my amazing Instagram followers, which I would have never thought. Wasn't something I could think about asking for. And I shout out to my lovely, lovely forever sister, fam, Jonesy, Shondell, who, just encouraged me to do that, and people showed up, and I'm used to being the person to show up. Even when I was in my hardest, I'm like, you got food? You got food? I'm going to get you food. All right, cool. I don't have a lot, but what I do have, I want to share. And that's how I feel. And so to be in a position where I was not able to afford things broke my, it was heartbreaking. Or it felt like a lot of things. And, I even worried I had worked my way to being a food writer of some sort of, I don't want to say reputation, but some sort of je ne sais quoi, not je ne sais quoi, which is a certain sort of point of view, and building up my network and community, and the fact that rates are getting lower, competition's getting higher, publications are going away, so the opportunities to pitch are getting, and then what happened? So it's like, okay, bad, I'm going to go build my own thing. And then Google got to pull this? It just was hard to figure out, a way through. And so, here's a few things. I have, I'm so thankful to my friends and community who decided to pour into me in that way, and share, a little bit of something to help me keep going. My parents have just moved up here about a little over a year ago, and so just being able to spend intentional time with them, but when I think about kind of food writing stuff, it's like, all right, what did I do? Things got tough. What did I do? I got a long-term contract. Was I looking for jobs? Of course I was, but the amount of jobs that do what I do, they are fewer and fewer and farther between. Fewer and fewer. And I thought about, all right, I don't know if Instagram's a space for me to be making money. I don't know if social's be the way for me to be making money, but you know what I love doing? I love talking to people about what they do and what lights them up. I love talking to folks about my favorite part. It's like I like writing, but I love interviewing. I love to sit down and just tell me what's going on, and just kind of how folks kind of unpeel and reveal sort of what are the things that feel true for them. And it's such a it's just if it has to do with food, if you got a food stock collection, hit me up. I want to talk about it. And so I started this podcast, Food Stories Told. My goal is to eventually monetize it, but my goal also is to eventually be consistent in posting. And so it's balancing building a thing while you are building a thing. So, a couple other Google changes happened throughout the year. I realize I'm being out of order, but a couple of changes with Google through the year. I'm starting to get a little bit of money from my site again. In addition to Food Stories Told, the podcast, I reignited the Substack that was associated with it. And so I do really look to that as a place to do long form and to share, not only share with other people kind of what my observations are with food culture, but also to think about how I want to help people learn about the stories of food in their families of origins and communities. I want to empower folks, if they're curious, to get a little bit, investigate, get a little curious about why does my mom make the yams like that? Why? And I want them to, anyone, no matter what your background is, whether you're first generation, whether your parents are immigrants, whether your parents been here for a minute, if you are I don't have culture, we just make Jell-O mold salad and we eat meatloaf, it's okay, bad, fine, that is culture, that is the story, that is still the story. What's the story about why does your grandma always get mighty fine pudding? Why does your, a really good one is my adopted mom, foster mom. I got two moms, it's another whole different story. But my mom Sheila, she grew up eating these galumpkis. They're Polish cabbage rolls. Most cultures have a version of it. And, she's not Polish. She's not of Polish ancestry. she was married to someone who was Polish American, but like, you know, who grew up eating that stuff, but you know, she was not Polish. And so I remember asking her, she said, well, because my mom made it. Because we were, you know, 9 kids, or 8 or 9 kids, and you do what you can with what you have. La Cucina Povera. It's, you know, it's, that is the beauty of how food stories come together. A story, you know, a story I hope to tell someday is about a previous partner's mother makes this Jell-O salad every year, and nobody likes it except for her. But nobody likes it. Someday I will be writing about that. The first time they introduced it to me, and then whisper in the corner, I don't know, what do you think? What do you think? Right? And it turns out it was a beautiful tribute to her mother and her grandmother. Maybe, I can't remember which one. Maybe it was her mother. And, you know, it's like, that's the food stories. That's the food culture. Those are the narratives and smells and tastes that go along with how we think about food. And so, in this next, you know, so to go back to what am I doing now as a food writer, I write for Forbes, so I write about the culture of food, and in addition to talk, you know, to just kind of breaking down trends, what are the origins of these dishes, like connecting with the fact that, well, there's innovation, sometimes nothing old is new, and somebody been doing it for years, but also how do I communicate and share things? You know, it's the ways that I communicate and share things that are kind of, what is this thing contain? What is contained in this? Even if I talk about a food recall, I'm not just talking about, oh, guess what? This cheese was not labeled. I want you to understand why labeling is important, and I want you to understand. I want readers to understand that people rely on those things, on the labels being correct. I also worked in food manufacturing. I was also oversaw food label design for the products I was in. So I knew I was not the one dealing with the FDA and the regulatory bodies, but my designers and me had to be real clear, triple check before things. So it's like, not only do I understand that, I have a lived experience. And so that's, you know, that's stuff I've been really striking a chord with, stuff that's been working for Forbes, looking to scale the amount that I do with them in order to maximize, you know, articles that people want to read, and for that to be part of my regular income. I have a wonderful editor. The podcast is also another part. Through my Substack, there is a paid tier, which I've not promoted. I want to be able to give value to folks first, and for folks who maybe want to contribute, that's cool. I'd like to eventually get sponsorships, and really my goal is to get paid to talk to people about what they do. I get to do it a little bit with Forbes, you know, that is part of it, but also I want to build my own thing that people are connected to, and I want to share the stories behind what lights folks up in food. So I do that. I do, you know, if there are folks, I also have a newsletter for the trade, publicists who are, you know, asking me what I'm, you know, sourcing newsletter, but also I'll write on, you know, some of my reflections on food culture, how I look at stories. You know, it's like, I'm not just looking at a trend as a trend. You know, like, Pizza Hut came out with a tomato wine. I tasted it. It's interesting, but I want to have it with some pizza to really kind of see what's what. But for me, it's not just the fact that they came out with a tomato wine. They worked with a vineyard to produce this. This was not like some mass market thing that they just decided to slap a label on. They are thinking about, you know, like savory wine, like that is not a new concept. You know, like just a wine that has these sort of savory sort of notes to it. All the sorts of ways that we look at culture and brands as a reflection of us. Brands aren't the trendsetters. It is a reflection of what we are wanting and needing. It is a mirror. And so I have loved doing that for Forbes. With Food Stories Told, I do some episodes go behind the scenes and go a little bit deeper than I was able to go on a story. And I am continuing to do that. I'm pitching with other publications as well. I've got my first piece for The Kitchen that's going to be out in a couple weeks, sometime next month. I'm also working on a memoir that has a proposal for a memoir that will get somewhere before the end of the year. And even if it gets somewhere, is to send a more polished copy to my coach. And slow and steady wins the race. I got I'm doing the work with Forbes. I'm doing the work with, my site as well. The podcast. I'm looking to connect with folks for sponsorship. And I'm keeping it, I'm picking up odd jobs, projects, whether it be like, can you consult on this thing? Can you go, if I, I'll take photography jobs. I'll take, hey, can we sit down and talk about this thing? Sure. But a coach of mine told me, Stephanie, you're going to write your way out of this. And by writing, it may be audio. It may be just communicate, just not being scared is really the big thing. Is that, I went from a career in marketing to a career to write about food. This is a choice. This continues to be a choice. But even still, to go back to marketing, there really isn't. It isn't what it used to be. I've been out of that game for a minute, but really, I'm a storyteller, and I think about what this year has brought, and boy, do I love to tell a story. So, so it's a mix of those things. It's a mix of being able to tell those stories and also being able to make a living doing what I can. So keeping an eye out for other long-term projects, even a little job, maybe a part-time thing, but as long as it's in the industry, that would be good. And I am just taking the opportunities as they come. 2024 was a year I've never been so afraid of just the world falling out. And granted, 2025 is going to be its own set of something. And I can't even talk about that. But all I know is that I've been through something that, going through a big website, loss of income, job market being what it is, more folks competing for very few freelance positions. The cost of everything's getting higher. There's all you can do is just be nimble, be open, be curious, be lean, and take it from there. And I'm curious, what have you been doing? If you're in an industry like mine, if you're writing about food, if you're writing period, are you taking in-house marketing jobs, or are you hustling and making things? Are you relying on the underground economy? And are you, maybe don't tell me underground economy is some sort. We don't want to get that, so but let me know what you're doing, and if you are, and if so, how are you looking at and thinking about your community? Are there people in your, can you trade services? Can you even, can you, swap meals? Can you, I don't know, what are the ways that you can keep and cover your community? And how can what can y'all do together in order to make it through? Those are the things I think about. And as a food writer and food being that connector, those are things that I really look to. So I'm excited to talk more about that. But here you are with the snow. I am just excited to get to my parents and see my siblings and really just lean into the love that they've been showing me these days. And I hope that you are able to spend time with folks that you care about, and for those who can't, And those who, I hope you're with your either family of origin or family of intentional family, or even your little fur babes. I'll be heading home with my fur babes tonight, and that's gonna be nice. And rest easy. Stay inside if you can. If not, be safe. If you're in the neck of the woods, place in the world I am. And I'll talk to you later.